All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Kenneth Ellington. This is Nigel Boston. On with you for today's session. We're going to be covering threat analysis, right? How to be a threat analyst in today's landscape. What does that cover? What does that actually go over? What are some of the things you might want to do from a job perspective? Some of the pitfalls and skills that you might want to avoid, and some of the skills you might want to have for that. Any questions you have for any of my panelists, just let me know. I know Courtney should be on. Courtney Wright. She is a threat hunter. She was my first student I ever had. She's awesome. She's amazing. And then Sophie, my program manager, should be on as well.
So, busy man.
Awesome. Otherwise, we will get started. All right. So, any questions you guys have at all, just feel free to drop a question to the chat. Let me make sure people can actually see us. Let's see here. All right, perfect. We're good. All right, perfect. We are live. Everything looks good. Awesome.
What's going on, Kenneth?
Man, it's been an interesting time. Started my new contract, my new role. Was it last? No, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. So it's been good so far. Been a lot of fun. Most of my clients are Sentinel and Defender. So just been focusing more on that. So I have one of my stretch goals. I'll get what is it? I think SC 200 is the analyst one to Microsoft, if I'm correct.
The analyst cert.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get that by December. So I need to. So what is it? It's Defender, it's Sentinel, it's Purview, and I think it's like Copilot as well.
Heavy Azure shop.
Yeah. So Sentinel wasn't too bad. I've used that before pretty often. It's just the Defender stuff I have to focus on. And then the Copilot, I don't like Copilot. Only thing it's good for is like Microsoft stuff. Everything else is like it's terrible for. It doesn't give you any good feedback. So yeah, that's what we'll be focusing on. I have friends that work at Microsoft. I'm like, hey guys, do you guys use Copilot? Like, oh hell no, we don't use Copilot. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, nah, it's not the greatest either. I'm familiar with it as well. I hardly use it.
Yeah, it's funny the amount of money they spent inside building it. It doesn't work well. It's very funny. But yes. So what that'd be another side note. You guys will be seeing more Sentinel content from me in the next couple months as well. Any questions about that at all, just feel free to ask me for it. Then for you, Nigel, we want to get you to do your threat intel course for cohort 2.
Yeah, definitely ready. I've had a lot of individuals reach out to me on LinkedIn, very interested about the space and cyber threat intelligence and things of that nature. So ramping up for the cohort 2, definitely coming soon for sure. There's a lot of enhancements that I've made from the first cohort that I taught. The second one's going to be a lot more hands-on, a lot more, I would say more being able to market yourself and your skill set to an organization that doesn't have a threat intel team. I'll give you all the tools, how to pitch it, things like that to your organization to show the value in cyber threat intelligence, but also if your organization already has that, how you can stand out and maybe transition to another role, like if you're a SOC analyst, how a threat intel role would look like, or engineer, things like that. So
yeah, a lot of firms don't have a threat intelligence shop at all. They don't really understand how it works. So if you're able to actually pitch that in a proper manner, that'd be really helpful for them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so definitely. If you guys have questions about that, just reach out to me, reach out to Nigel on LinkedIn. We'll get you set up for it. We're looking to do it probably this fall, to start the second cohort. So I'm really looking forward towards that. Yeah. I've gotten a lot of people that ask me about doing threat intelligence specifically. And they asked me when's the next cohort. I'm like, it should probably be around this time. So, very excited for Nigel. But yes, for today's main topic, right? We're going to be going over like what it takes to be a threat, either intel or threat analysis analyst in 2025. So Nigel, me and you have been in the field. I've been in the field for what has it been? Almost 7 years. What have you been in the field for? 5 or 3?
I'm going on year 3. No, well, 4 technically. 4.
Yeah. So when I got in, this was back in like 2000, I want to say 19. I was a threat analyst for Publix as an intern for that entire summer, which I love that, by the way. I think Publix is an amazing company because I hate Walmart completely. So I have nothing but good things to say about Publix. So when I got in, right, the market was a lot different. For example, there really wasn't any SOAR platforms at all. For example, that wasn't really a thing. There was no hyper automation at all either. That didn't really exist either. Most of the SIEM platforms were still on-prem, right? You had QRadar, Splunk, Enterprise Security, obviously. There was no Logkill. There was no XCM, right? There was no Anvalogic, right? There was none of that. There was no Panther, and none of that really existed. Or if it did this, it was still in like the stealth mode phase, right? So the market had changed from that perspective a lot. And how to actually land a job has changed as well, right? For the longest, cybersecurity was really under the radar, right? Because for me, when I found out about it, I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, I don't know what cybersecurity is. I'm like, what is that? But that's changed over the past, probably over like 5 years, honestly. It's gotten to be more mainstream, right? So you had a lot more people that have wanted to do that, right? Which means there's a lot more human beings that want to do this for the capital perspective. Which makes getting in a little bit harder, right?
Very competitive.
Yeah, it makes it more competitive, right? Because the pool of applicants and candidates has increased quite tremendously since I've started, right? But there are still some tried and true methods you can do to make yourself stand out, and we'll be covering those today as well. So one of the biggest things that I feel people don't do, and I probably harp on this every single call I get on, no matter what I do for public speaking stuff. It's the fact that people do not know how to actually network at all, right? That's probably the biggest thing I see that professionals don't do a good job of, right? So what will often happen is someone gets their first job, right? Let's go with that. Let's say someone gets their first job in cybersecurity, right? They've been trying to get it for the past year. They finally get it, right? They're super happy, right? What they'll do is they'll just go internally, right? And then at that point, they'll just stop talking to different people, right? So you won't see them post on LinkedIn for like months at a time. They won't share anything at all. They'll just focus on their job, right? And a lot of people work really cool companies like CrowdStrike, Apple, maybe Capital One, right? Really, really cool, notable companies, right? And then a year later, they get laid off, right? And in that 2-year time period, they didn't post anything. They didn't talk about the things they were doing. They didn't build the Shroud network, so they're back at square one again, right? So that's why I stress for people, the best time to look for jobs when you don't have one, right? So even when you get your first job, you get promoted, still network, still interview, still talk to people. That's extremely important, right? Because interviewing is a skill, right? And if you haven't interviewed in like a year, you're very rusty, and it's very noticeable, right? So always just, I'll say every like once a quarter, so every 4 months, just check the market, right? Interview with a company, apply for it, talk to different recruiters, hiring managers, just see what's out there, right? You don't have to take any offers if you don't want to take it, if you're happy at your firm, but just know like what your value is and what company you're willing to pay is what I'll say.
Yeah.
Nigel?
No, yeah. I mean, you touched on all the points. I feel like, everyone should understand that you are a brand, right? Like how you come across in this professional setting, once you get that cybersecurity job, you shouldn't stop, right? So you get the job, you're excited. Yes, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lock in and try and get your feet under you and learn the culture and how the organization works, but don't stop doing the things that you did before. If you have that extra time to, learn on the side and post on LinkedIn, do that. Comment on other people's stuff, do that. Continue to keep building your network, right? That's part of your brand, part of your job as well. So to Kenneth's point, let's say, if you do get laid off, you still have those connections, you still have that activity on LinkedIn or whatever, media that you're using, medium that you're using. And that is what's going to keep you afloat, right? Don't get into that kind of mentality where I got in cybersecurity, for me to get the next job is going to be easy. No, the field is competitive. I'm not one of these people who are going to sit here and lie to you and be like, yeah, like, of course you can get in with no experience, don't know what a command line is, and of course, no, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you that you should be working every single day, right? If this is the field, the domain you want to get into in cybersecurity, it is constantly evolving every day. This is not like, I'm at Publix and the cashier is just the cashier. Like every day I can just go to it, nothing's going to change. Like cybersecurity is going to change. It's going to evolve. AI, like machine learning, cloud, all these things are relatively new, which all the professionals in the field have to adapt, or you get left behind, or you just feel comfortable where you're at and you roll the dice. I don't like rolling dices, so I'm gonna evolve with the time, and I'm gonna gain all the skills and do the work, and I'll relax and roll dices in like Jamaica or something later, So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's also certain firms you go to where you have to, what's the word for it, step up your game. And if you don't, you'll get cut, basically, right? For example, you work at like Netflix, right? Their culture there is much more, I would say, intense from the perspective of when you interview with them, they specifically say, okay, I'm like, this isn't a job where you can coast. They're very straight about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even with that being said, you get paid much more compared to a different firm, right? So know what firm you're trying to get set up, right? If you work at like Amazon or Netflix, you're gonna probably work more if you work at a smaller company, right? That is much more about building yourself up and trying to get the product out or trying to get the next series funding compared to a smaller firm, right? Because there are firms that are much more culture firms from that standpoint. For people to retire, Publix is one of those firms, right? I asked the people I work with, Nigel, who are like, honestly, Kenneth, hey, hey, John, you're good at your job. How come you don't go somewhere else to make more money? You're like, hey, Kenneth, like I'm 58. I have 8 more years to retirement. I get paid like $150,000. I'm just gonna sit there and wait. All right.
Yeah.
And the benefits of the company are so good. There's no point for them to leave, right? They don't really feel the need to. So Publix was definitely a company like that. There's a lot of people that have been there for 20 years and they're comfortable. They get paid pretty good money. They really get work-life balance, and so they're happy, right? Then there's firms such as, again, if you go towards, I don't know, if you go to like Google or you go towards like Netflix, where that's not the case, right? People won't always be there for like 10 to 20 years, but they'll be there for 5 years and they'll bust their butt to get to where they need to go, right? Then jump somewhere else, you get promoted or get a better job, right?
And to build on that, the people that go to like Netflix, Amazon, these big companies, when they get into those roles, they're learning a lot and doing a lot of work, to Ken's point. So the reason why they don't stay there, and I know this is not the topic for today, but I'm going to put you on game. When they go to those big FANG companies, they get a lot of exposure, a lot of skills, and make them highly marketable. So once you leave Amazon and you learn all the things at Amazon and how they, work and things of that nature, your resume looks top notch. So whatever you were making at Amazon, let's say just hypothetically $130K, and you go to Microsoft or somewhere else or a smaller company, you can say, hey, I can pretty much do a job of 3 by myself because of the skills that I've learned, and I want 170, 180K. So yes, the time has changed where the loyalty to the companies isn't as pertinent as before. But in that time, when you go to these different companies, you're learning a lot of skills, and they're busting their butts and they're working hard to be able to then demand what they want maybe at another company. So Once again, to my original point, it doesn't stop. Like you're going to keep evolving, keep learning new skills. And I mean, it's on you at the end of the day. Like, I guess the less people who don't want to do that, I guess it's better for me. But I would like to see everyone do that.
Yeah, I definitely co-sign on that. Because I work with people that have worked with the different companies, and they come towards like my firm, for example, and like the level of work they put in and the quality of work they can do is they can do the work of like one really good person. If you're like an A+ player, right? If you're like an MVP caliber player, you can cover the work of like 10 different people, honestly, right? Just because of how good you are. And so companies will pay top notch for that specifically. So that's why, again, oftentimes you won't see them. You won't see people stay at the firm like 10 different years because the job's not really stressful. I'm not gonna lie, right? My friends that work there, they are very stressed. They pay a lot of money, but they work their asses off. And so they'll do that for like 4 to 5 years. They'll make their money, right? And they'll go to somewhere else, right? So that is one path you can take, right? But again, any questions on any of those topics at all, just drop inside the chat. We are here to answer any questions that you guys may have for that. But go back towards the main point for the topic of today's this video or live stream for webinar would be, what are some of the skills you might want to get to do threat analysis, right? I talked about this in my last previous video. Some of these skills might overlap as well, but they're very fundamental skills that will take you across the board for any technical cybersecurity role, right? So I'll go from a technical perspective and a non-technical perspective. And then again, guys, any questions you have for any of us at all, just drop your questions inside of the chat. So from a purely technical perspective, right, some of the skills you may need, right, if you do threat analysis would be probably understanding how operating systems work, right? So Windows, Linux. I think that's extremely helpful in any cybersecurity job, honestly. It doesn't matter if you're engineer and analyst, right? So understand how operating systems work, Windows, Linux, right? How to dedicate transfer between those two systems, right? How to SIEM ingest that data, right? That's super important. Because majority of platform and endpoints are Windows or Linux, right? For operating systems. So know how a threat actor might want to compromise it, right? Second thing would be understand how malware works, right? You don't have to be a malware researcher or reverse engineer malware. You can if you want to, right? If that's the path to go down. But understand how malware works at the core, right? And understand the fundamental components of it, right? So that may go inside of being able to dissect it or watch it propagate inside of a sandbox environment, right? How does it affect other pieces of software, other components of the machine, of the computer, of the operating system, right? And then recognizing what type of malwares different APT groups may want to use, right? That can be very helpful for you. Third thing I would say would be more than likely get really good at a SIEM platform. Right? A lot of them are being combined inside of SIEM and SOAR. So if you can do both, that's cool, right? So if you want to use Splunk Enterprise Security and Splunk SOAR, awesome. That's what I primarily use. You want to get good at Microsoft Sentinel, cool as well. If you want to get really good at XCM, and there's Park Suite for XCM and XSOAR, cool as well, right? But just pick one platform. If I'm using one of those platforms, and just learn that inside out and then go from there, right? The thing I see a lot of times as well, Nigel, especially for cloud security engineer people, they want to learn GCP, AWS, Oracle, Azure all at once. I'm like, that's not how it works, guys. Like, you got to pick one and go from there.
It's the same. They're just called different things at the different platforms.
Yeah. So just try to learn everything at once. I'm like, guys, you can't do that. It's not gonna work. Like, you got to pick one. If you're in, for example, if you're in like retail, for example. For example, Publix uses they use Azure because when Amazon bought Whole Foods, they're like, all right, we don't want to support a competitor, right? So they went with Azure instead, right? So you work in retail, oftentimes that'll be the case. So if you work at Kroger, Albertson for the backend stuff, you work at Walmart, they'll probably use, I think, Azure compared to AWS. They'll probably have some AWS workloads because they might have to, but they'll probably primarily use Azure stuff, right? Just to not support a competitor. If you work I don't know, on the government side, and they may be more heavy on AWS GovCloud, then you might want to specialize in that, right? So just pick whatever field you want to be in as pertains to cybersecurity, then go from there. Those would be the main ones. Anything else you want to add from that, Nigel?
No, not really. You touched on some of the good technical skills. I'll give a few, and we've got some questions in the chat. But I would say, curiosity. So if you're good at investigation, analysis, things like that. If you're good at writing, these are skills that are in threat intelligence that people kind of overlook or don't talk about as much. But writing, because we do a lot of reporting. Collaboration. Can you communicate? Can you disseminate information well? These are skills that we do on a day-to-day basis. That's very important. The technical stuff, you should have basic security principles, understood, different operating systems like Kenneth mentioned. And then knowing the lingo, right? In TTI, we kind of use a lot of acronyms, different things. APT, he's mentioned, which is an advanced persistent threat. There's TTPs, there's nation state, there's ransomware. These are different words and terms that we use in CTI quite often that you should need to know what the lingo is and what they mean.
If you guys do have any questions about acronyms that I use, please do stop me. It can be in alphabet soup for cybersecurity a lot of the times, which I do hate about our show, honestly. It gets very confusing. And every firm will have their own naming convention and nomenclature as well, which makes it even worse. I'll pause for a second so we can answer some questions, and we'll hit on the soft skills aspect of it. So let me see. Let's go to the first one here. LinkedIn user. It's not. I can't see it on the streamer, but I can see it on LinkedIn. Bijan puts, do internships matter? Also, do entry jobs actually lead to senior positions? If you're in college, internships do matter a lot. I don't know what the percentages are, but you're exponentially more likely to land a job after college if you have an internship compared to someone that doesn't, right? And for some reason they should be paid, which again I mean in a sense as you're more likely to get a job afterwards if it's a paid internship compared to unpaid, right? I think all internships should be paid for the most part. I remember when I was, just a side note, when I was at a USF, right? They had an internship for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Nigel, and they wanted to get it's for marketing. They wanted to give away for free, right? As unpaid. And I think my professor was like, they paid Jameis Winston like $200 million, but they can't afford $15 an hour. He's like, that's BS. So yeah, firms they have the money. I promise you, they have the money to pay you. So just ask for it, right? But yeah, internships do matter, right? I had 2 when I was in college, right? A lot of my interns at ECA that I have, not students, a lot of them have internships as well, right? And they get paid so much more damn money than I did when I was their age. It's not even funny. So I don't know, but I'm very happy for them though, right? So internships do matter, especially for larger firms. If you do a really good job, you'll probably get a return offer more than likely, like 90% of the time. So if you internship like at Microsoft or Capital One or Bank of America, JP Morgan, for example, if you do really good that summer and you graduate the next year, so 9 times out of 10 give you a return offer to come back as a full-time person. All right, so internships really do matter. Anything to add on from that, Nigel?
I would say internships matter, yes. Do they lead to senior positions? Yes, as long as you continue to do the work. Now, I say you go from an intern to a senior level analyst or something, probability probably isn't as high, but you can definitely work towards it. All you need is a foot in the door and continue to work. So that is definitely a way to get your foot in the door.
Next question from Andy would be, how much red teaming should I look into to be an effective blue teamer? So it depends, right? Like what type of blue team role do you want is what I would ask you, right? You can do threat analysis, knowing how the threat adversaries like work, like how they operate and how they think is super important, right? You don't have to become a penetration tester to be successful in blue teaming, all right? You want to do more purple teaming work, or again, it's independent what you want to do. For example, you can do more purple teaming work, then learning how red team works and much more depth will be helpful towards you, right? So this depends.
Yeah, I would say how much red team should I look into be effective? So it sounds like you want to be an effective blue teamer. And if the goal is to look into red teaming, what that is essentially is thinking like an adversary. That's what red teaming is. So when you do that, you will start to learn the different tactics, tools. So you'll learn about the MITRE ATT&CK framework. You'll understand how the adversary, the bad guy, the bad person goes in and says, hey, I'm going to start with initial access to persistence to exfiltration. You'll learn about some of the tools that some of the red teamers use, like Bloodhound, Mimikatz, things like that. And then overall, what it's going to do is, from a, let's say, a SOC perspective, a SOC analyst perspective, when you start to see some of these anomalies, it'll ring off in your head and you'll be thinking like the adversary on what they're trying to do within your organization. So I would say you don't have to go deep into red teaming, but learning about red teaming will start for you to understand the other side of what your job is as a blue teamer. So you'll think like the adversary, because that's what red teaming is. It's the effective or the ethical hacker.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Let me see. The question would be, what's your take on getting a position in digital forensics based in cybersecurity? I mean, if you want to do that, if that's the path you want to take, right? Normally called DFIR, or digital forensics and incident response. For larger firms, they may split it up and just have a purely forensics team that handles incidents from that. They may have an incident response team, right? For medium-sized firms, it's never combined inside of one group or one role. So it just depends, right? It's a really cool part to be in. I know this is what a Henry does, as well for his job. I don't specialize in this too much. I do a little more incident response. I do digital forensics. So if you have questions about it, you can always hit up on HD on Tech Tool, or his not Slack channel, Discord channel as well. To ask some questions about it. But I particularly don't focus in this area for cybersecurity.
Yeah, me either. I've collaborated more on the incident response part of DFIR, but I do know this space is very tactful, I should say, I guess, because they're more of after boom. To my understanding, is that they're kind of gathering the information, kind of going back to, and there's like legal stuff involved. It's a lot. So yeah, I would reach out to Henry Davis if he is in that space. I forgot, but yeah, he's probably just a little bit more technical than I am.
Yeah. I know especially for a lot of firms that work with like the federal government, they have large teams for this, for compliance regulatory reasons as well. All right. So if an incident happens, everything after, think of it like police department, right? You wouldn't run inside of a burning building to check if someone did arson, right? You would wait until everything's been handled, the fire's been put out, right? Then do the investigation. Same thing for this, right? So you never go in after the incident has been handled and the systems are probably back in line, everything's been kind of cleared. You'll then go in and actually do your investigation to see what happened and why it happened. From that regard, right? Incident responders are there to make sure, like a better term, people don't die and the fire gets put out, right? Your job as a digital forensic person is to actually see exactly what happened in great detail, right? And investigate from that standpoint. So two different things. Let's see.
So which path have you gone through? You guys are SOC analysts.
I used to be a threat intelligence analyst back in the day, but now I work as a lead SIEM engineer or senior SIEM engineer, right? I've worked from being a threat hunter, SOAR engineer, SIEM engineer, architect or consultant work, developer, which I hated. It's why I went back to cybersecurity. I can't code every single day all day. It's not my lifestyle. I can't do that. So yeah, I've held a lot of different roles on my end.
Yeah, for me, I started off as a junior threat and vulnerability management analyst. Technically, I'm still that, but I actually specialize now in, I'm the lead cyber threat intelligence analyst. So I started off with vulnerability management and threat intelligence. Then I kind of like specialized and was like, I want to do threat intelligence, and that's the path that I took.
Yeah, it depends what path you want to take in that regard. Okay. Looks like most of our questions have been answered. All right. So, part 2 of what I'm talking about, I think Nigel covered this as well, but the soft skills aspect of it, right? Especially if you can be in a threat space, that's super, super important, right? Because most of the times you're going to have to communicate what you actually find towards your stakeholders. Stakeholders just means higher people that have the money, for lack of a better term, right? So C-suite, senior management, right? People that write the checks for whatever platforms you want to get, or to approve budget, right? So if you don't know how to actually communicate your findings and why what you found is super important, then you won't get your budget approved, and your team might get their staffing headcount slashed, right? So having those proper communication skills, being able to actually break complex topics down is extremely important, which is what we specialize at ECA, right? For all of our classes, right? Especially mine and Nigel's, right? That's something we spend a lot of time with because especially when we're doing interviews, a lot of candidates cannot break down those topics, right? They'll have the technical knowledge, but they don't know how to actually explain it towards another human being, right? If you can't explain it towards me, then I can't trust you to put you in front of a client, which means I can't pay you, right? So super important topics. Nigel?
Yeah, I'm very big on communication and concise, right? When I speak to, C-suite, my CISO, leadership, I go in there with a plan every single time. And my plan is, if I allocated this 30-minute meeting, if I can get it done in 15, I'm getting it done in 15, and I'm giving them back 15 minutes. Like, being very concise and direct with your point in CTI is very important. Being able to gather the intel, compile it, and disseminate it into a format that the audience, the stakeholder, can understand is very important. How I prepare a report for my C-suite is not going to how I'm going to prepare a report for my SOC. It's not going to be how I prepare a report for my engineers. It's not going to be how I prepare it for my vulnerability management analysts. I prepare all those different reports differently. So being able to kind of turn that switch on is going to be very important. So when you're in a meeting talking with your CISO, and you're talking all these technical terms, not saying CISOs aren't technical, but like, he doesn't care about that. He wants to know why I'm in this meeting. I had probably something for you to give me. Give me that information so I can leave and go do other things. That's the truth. While the SOC, SOC analysts love to get in the weeds and the nitty gritty. The SOC can talk technical and IOCs and TTPs and alerts and all that. Like, we can do that. But my point is understanding your stakeholder, understanding your audience, and be able to disseminate that information is going to be very important.
Yeah. Big thing is knowing who your audience actually is, right? For example, you want to talk the same way you talk with your friend towards the way you talk with your parents, or you probably shouldn't, honestly, right? Yeah, just stuff like that, right? It's like know who you're talking to, right? For example, I want to talk to my mom the same way I talk towards like Nigel, for example, right? I get slapped across the face. So just like understanding that type of perspective is super important, right? So know who your audience is and know what pain points they've been having, right? But oftentimes you can directly ask them before the call, right? And then like have a list of topics that you actually want to hit for it, right? Because if you're able to save these people time and money, they will love you. I promise you. You'll be their best friend.
100%.
Because if you're like look at the calendar, they have like 20 meetings like in 10 hours. Half of them overlap. They don't have time to do anything. So you can do that. It's super important.
My first year, or like my first year and a half, that was like, I'm not joking, like that was a goal of mine. Like every meeting that I knew that I set, I was trying to beat that time and make sure I got my point across. Not like rushing, but like making the information very direct, like boom, boom, boom. Here are the action items. All right, talk to you guys at the next meeting. Got 15 minutes back. Everyone's doing a little clapping emoji. Everyone's happy. And everyone loves coming to the Nigel meeting.
Yeah, that definitely does help out.
These are the little gems that'll help you in your career going further.
This is how you get promoted, guys. Honestly, this is really how you get promoted. It's like the small stuff. Like make sure. What? How was I told? Make sure you make your manager look good. Like when you're talking towards his manager, right, or her manager, right? Like make their lives easier, right? So when their manager talks to them, like, oh man, Kenneth been saying you've been doing this great stuff, right? You're like, you know what? I need to promote Kenneth for my second right hand man or whatever, right? That's how it normally works. So just always hype people up, which is why I do those shout outs for LinkedIn, right? That's always hype people up. It's not. I'm telling you guys, it's not like rocket science. It's just hard to be consistent at. That's the only thing. But if you can be consistent on a daily and weekly basis, then you'll be fine. Like
so, and that's a great point, because I know, okay, I don't know, but I would assume that a lot of people are scrolling on Instagram, TikTok, just reading things that aren't bettering their position where they're at right now. But if Kenneth or myself say, hey, go on LinkedIn and make a post about something that actually you did, like you completed a lab in TryHackMe, or you're in Kenneth's academy, you had a great presentation at a capstone, post about it. And we say go post about it, but you don't want to do that. Promote yourself to help your chances. Like sometimes that, I mean, I understand it, but sometimes that logic just kind of blows me. It's just like, why not put the time and intention on yourself than, mindlessly scrolling on TikTok and Instagram and all these other apps? Utilize the app that can actually get you the job and potentially get you the job that you want or better your position. Because when maybe you might be shy, you might not type the right thing. Like we have generative AI, like they can make you a whole post. Like there's like the excuses are becoming very limited. And I just encourage people just do. Like the analysis paralysis is what's keeping you stagnant. Dang, that was a bar. But like, I just think you should just be posting, connecting more on LinkedIn, grow your network, and you never know who you may meet.
Yeah. The quicker you can bridge the delta from thought to actual action is how you'll be successful. All right. So the minute you think about, hey, I should probably post this, just write it and do it. The longer you wait, the less likely you actually be able to do it. Right. So the quicker you can bridge that delta, that gap, that divide from an actual thought process of doing something to actually doing it, the better off you'd be. Because timing is everything, right? So if you're able to make a quicker decision, you'll just beat your competition. Because those wins and gains will just compound over time, over and over again, right? Which is why I post probably 4 times a week and done it for the past 2.5 years, right? And then all those compounds and wins have just compounded over time, right? All the job opportunities, all the speaking gigs, all the training stuff that I get is because of that. And I just consistently do it over and over again for it. So a lot of times I will get on these calls, right, Nigel? People are like, but Kenneth, like, what if no one likes my post? I'm like, who cares if they don't, right? You just keep posting, right? No one. A guy was like, when I started the platform, no one knew who I was. No one cared about me. No one wanted to talk to me. It took me like months. Actually, no. It took me years to actually build all this up, right? And so I'm teaching you how to do it in a much shorter time frame. For all the things that I learned, right? The biggest thing to just be consistent, right? If you only post like once a month, once every single month, you won't get good results. It needs to be, if all you can manage is like twice a week, and start twice a week and go from there, right? It's better to be consistent than to try to do small little bursts, right? Just have a slow, consistent, methodical process about how you go about doing your business, and you'll be good from that, right? So again, you can talk about anything, right? You can talk about, hey, I'm learning how to use Sentinel and Splunk. Hey, I'm learning how to do threat analysis using small knowledge objects. Hey, I'm learning how to read TTPs using the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Here's what I learned, right? Just write about stuff like that, right? Again, like Nigel was saying, you can use ChatGPT. If you want to use Copilot for some odd reason, use Copilot. Gemini, there's a bunch of different platforms you can use to streamline your process and make yourself look better, right? So just go out and do it. That's what I'll tell you. Because my thing is, Nigel, if you don't, someone else is going to do it, and they'll get the job money that you want. That's how it works. I tell people.
You can take a horse to water, you can't make him drink.
Make a drink. Yeah, you can't force his head down in the water. Won't be happy. I try, and they don't get happy. So I'm fucking dehydrated now. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. Yeah. I'm gonna talk this about Hamdi on his show as well. But I did I think I might have told you. This was back in, I want to say, April or May. I did interview for like an investment banking hedge fund position. And they, by the way, guys, those firms pay a lot of money because they have a lot of money because they manage money, so they pay you a lot of money. They can pay like $200K, right? But I had to do 9 rounds of interviews, Nigel, for it.
9?
Nine. Yeah. And at the end, they told me that I had a terrible attitude and it wasn't technical. And so I was like, what? My thing was, if my attitude was so terrible, why did you tell me that I can interview 2 or 3? It would have been very obvious. I can't I can't BS you for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Like I can't do that. I'm not like James Bond. I can't do that type of stuff. Honest, right? So my thing was this, right? Everyone was like, why are you doing these interviews, Kev? I'm like, if I don't do these interviews, someone else is gonna do the interviews and get the job and get the money, right? So even though I thought it was BS, I didn't want to do it. I still did it, right, to see what would happen, all right, and kind of go from there. All right. I'm moving forward. I probably do it again. I think that's utter ridiculous. To do nine rounds of interviews. All right.
Yeah.
It was like towards the end, Nigel, they asked me questions that they asked like during the first round. I'm like, why am I here? I'm like, either want me or you don't. If you don't want me, just let me go then. Like, don't waste my time.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Interviewing is just sharpening, it's just sharpening your sword. To your point, you never know when the opportunity may come when you may need to do that and get back on the market. So, like Kenneth said, I won't say that I do it, but I would say Kenneth would say, interviewing keeps you sharp and makes you understand the demands in the ecosystem, so you can see, and you wouldn't know what options are out there for you unless you interview. So doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very, not my lie. I was pretty pissed about it. When they told me that, I'm like, this is utter BS. Like y'all don't wasted like 2 weeks of my time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, right. What's other last thing to talk before we take a last minute questions? Another big point about it would be is for those of you that either want to get inside cybersecurity, that are newer, or are trying to get promoted, right? Again, biggest thing I ask people is like, what is your why, right? Like, why do you want to be in this field and why do you want to do this? People tell me money. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, that's every job, right? Because we all want to get paid. That's fine, right? But like, again, like, understand your why. Because if it's purely financial reasons, right? For most people, once you hit a certain amount, you'll just stop studying, right? You get bored and you just won't level up. And then you get let go from your firm, or you get passed by, right? So I'll know what your why is, right? What are you willing to, like, how much BS are you willing to put up to reach your end goal, right? Because no matter what path you take, right, anything worthwhile, anything that's worth its weight in salt in life, right, it's going to have ups and downs, right? No matter what you choose, right? You want to get married, start a family, meet a girl, right? Get in better shape. All that is hard, right? Everything kind of for that's going to be hard. So just know your why for why you're doing it, and then go from there. Because your why is not strong enough, and you can't overcome your how. Right? That's what I tell you. For a lot of people, their why is honestly not strong enough. right? Because they tell me I can't find a job after 3 months. I'm like, 3 months. I'm like, that's nothing. I'm like, I'm not trying to be rude, right? People have to eat, but I'm like, think of it if you're, again, I use this analogy all the time. If you're a doctor or lawyer, right? They spend like 15% of their life studying for one single thing, to do like one single action, right? Sometimes they'll do 8 to 10 years in med school or like residency to try to get the degree, try to get a job, right? So you tell me you're having trouble finding a job, right? Or you've been hard inside cybersecurity after 3 months is not that long of a time, right? Even like a year isn't that long of a time, realistically speaking, right? So like understand that, right? Again, like know what your why really is for when to be in this field and go from there. That's what I'll tell you.
Yeah, that was very important to me. So to Kenneth's point, my why was I knew the circumstance that I was in, and it needed to change. I gave myself a time frame. I left the position I was at, and I rolled the dice on myself. That was the one time I rolled the dice, and it was on myself, and it panned out. So, I was working at a warehouse. I was like, I'm tired of this. This is not I knew there was something better for me. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a help desk job. Took it. I'm learning cybersecurity every day, not every other day, not once a week, every single day, 8 months, documented on LinkedIn, posting. And I transitioned from a contractor to a full-time employee, junior analyst. I never been a SOC analyst. I was a junior analyst. Then I went to senior. So every step of the way that was my why. I needed to change my circumstance. So depends on what you want to do.
Yeah. For me personally, told her a bunch of times, right? I worked with the public supermarkets in Delhi, right? I was broke as hell, right? My car kept breaking down. AC didn't work half the time, right? I don't think I ever had more than a couple $100 in my bank account at a time when I was in college, for the most part. And I hated that. It really pissed me off. And like, this is not acceptable for me, right? So I chose cybersecurity, right? That's something that interests me. I thought I could make a career out of it, right? To take care of myself and my family. And so for like a period of basically 2 years when I was in college, that is all I did. I didn't go out and party, no drinking, which I don't ever do anyways. But I didn't really do any of that at all. I didn't hang out with my friends, right? All I did was work and it was school. And within school, I mean, going towards events, like probably twice a week, right? I worked probably between 20 and 30 hours. At Publix, I went to school. Some days I was still at school from like, I want to say probably like 8 to 9 to like 9 to 10 o'clock at night. And I would just sleep on campus because I was too tired to drive back home. So I sleep in my car. And then I do that probably 4 to 5 days a week, then work on the weekends and rinse and repeat and do that for like 100 weeks straight. That's functionally what I did, right? I also had 2 jobs sometimes. I had internships as well. I just made it work, right? It wasn't extremely hard. It was nice when I got 3 hours to sleep, right?
Yeah.
I would get home like at probably 11, got the drive from like North Tampa to like Plant City from mom's place. Then I would study, eat, shower, pass out, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, drive back to Publix, go to school and do it all over again, right? And so for me, it was insanely hard, right? There's a lot of days like, why am I doing this, right? I'm still poor. I'm broke. I was not poor. The big difference. I was broke. I myself didn't have any money, right? But I was like, I'm very broke, right? I can't buy a new car yet, right? I see all my friends getting a job at ReliaQuest. I'm like, damn, I'm like, that should be me. I'm like, that's not me, right? They're making, and I know this isn't a lot of money now, but back in the day, right, 7 years ago, they're making, I think, $25 per hour. It's like a college student back in Tampa, like in 2018, 2019, that was a lot of money. Right. And I was going, I was scraping by like $11.50 per hour, Nigel. I'm like, I can barely afford to buy chicken tender subs. I'm like, I'm struggling.
Barely.
Yeah. I got my break when I was at Publix, right? And then from there, I'm like, I just kept going, right? They got my job at DTCC. And then I moved to Dallas. And that's where A big reason why I want to move to Dallas was because I was unfortunate to actually grow as a human being overall, because I was going to be by myself, right? It was either I sink or I swim, right? And I swam. I what was that? 4.5 years later, I'm here, right? So yeah. Another thing I would say is if you have the opportunity to move for a job, I'd highly suggest it. Especially if you're single and you have any kids, move, dude. Just move. Like honestly, just move. Got people telling me, "Oh, Cam, I'm like, I want to move." I'm like, "Wait a second, are you married? You have kids?" Like, no. I'm like, then what's the problem?
They
If a
want to
job
stay in
willing to
their
give you a
hometown.
job, right? And you're
Yeah.
single, your time is your time, right? If you can move and you don't like it, eventually you can always move back home or move somewhere else, right? So I would say just do it. Oh, and then Avery Rodriguez put, I went to school at USF or University of South Florida. Go Bulls.
I went to YouTube University. Yeah. Saved $60K.
But yeah, that's kind of our mindset, right? For it. I wanted an extraordinary life, so I did extraordinary things, right? That's kind of how it works. So you want something, just go after it at a very, very baseline thing. But for the last 7 minutes, we'll open the floor to any questions you guys have for us at all. But anything we covered today. So floor is yours, guys.
Close mouths. See, like while they ask questions, these are kind of spaces I wish back then when I was like, every night just on try hack me learning and stuff like that. I would have loved to like utilize, people in the space more, like ask them questions like, YouTube videos on like getting the life of a cybersecurity analyst. Like those are cool, but like they're just gonna show you how they wake up, make coffee, pretend like they don't do any work. But as soon as that camera goes off, they're scrambling, trying to catch up for the day. But like I would like to ask professionals like what are some skills? Like what do you think was the best skill that you learned that helped you elevate to the next role or things like that? Like that's what I do now. When I go to conferences, I try and speak to the professionals in my field. Like, what was this thing that you helped your organization do that really that highlighted you? Or, what do you think is coming down? Like, what are some skills you think we need to learn? Like generative AI, machine learning, Amazon, AWS's AI, CERT, and all of that. Like, I already knew all that stuff was coming. So I was learning about RAG. I was learning about LLMs, like all these different things. So I could prepare myself when, either a company's like, hey, you need to know threat intelligence, but you need to utilize generative AI as well to compound your workload. Like, how can you work smarter and more efficient if you can do that with one analyst instead of two, right? So I'm always thinking like, how can I like utilize my time and resources to where if there's only one of me, I can do maybe 2 jobs. I'm not saying I'm going to do 2 jobs, but if I needed to, I could. So I'm always looking kind of in that perspective, but more importantly, I'm looking at what's next. Cloud, that wasn't new. Like we knew eventually on-prem was going to move to the cloud. Generative AI, as much as, the public thinks this is some brand new thing that came out, it's not, right? So like, understanding this and kind of thinking ahead will help you not be stagnant or get left behind. So I say that to say forums like these where you can talk to people in the space, these are the kind of questions I would ask, right? Like, what do you think is going to be next, right? Those are the kind of questions I ask to people who are smarter than me at different conferences and stuff. Like, what's after all this generative AI blah blah is done? What's coming after that? So.
Yeah, people are starting to see that there's a lot of flaws with the AI initiatives, right? It's not going to replace us. And someone said this was like 4 months ago. someone said within the next like 18, 24 months, all jobs will be limited by AI. I'm like, so there's gonna be World War III is gonna happen? Is what you're telling me? Like I'm very confused, right?
Just
people,
and, and when you see stuff like that, you look at it two ways, right? How I look at it is like, oh, okay, AI. Someone has to do that, right? So yes, it may take away jobs that aren't as effective, or maybe the resources may be reallocated somewhere else. But there still has to be that data scientist, that prompt engineer, that someone in that space who has to build that AI, that LLM. So maybe you should learn on how to do that if that job is taking if that space is taking a lot of jobs. Maybe you learn about that. There's not a lot of security in AI right now, so maybe you should learn about AI governance, right? AI governance. You know what? I'm saying too much. I need to go learn about that. But like, just think about those kind of things. Like, okay, it's taking all these jobs, but how can you pivot? Right? Or you could just be like, oh, all the cybersecurity jobs are going away. Okay, if you think that.
Yeah. People, especially security people, are saying that there's a lot of flaws with this, right? And there's a lot of work that needs to be done with it.
More guardrails need to go up.
Especially from like a back-end security perspective, from like a data analysis and like data ingestion for the type of data that it's actually reading itself off of, right? A lot of these firms don't care about security at all, right? Like whatsoever. And they're just feeding it whatever they want to feed it, all right? So I know a lot of firms, for my clients, they blocked a lot of those different tool sets, so you can't use it inside of our firms, right? So a lot of AI stuff we can't even use for a job because of it. So a lot of guardrails have to be put in that as well. So there's a lot of different things you can kind of focus on from that regard for it. So there'll still be jobs in 10 years, I promise you. And especially in 2 years, I promise you, at 2027, there will still be cybersecurity jobs. I read that, I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about? That made me laugh.
Data will always need to be protected.
Yes. Especially if you live in Europe, much more so than America. They have much more stringent data security laws than we do.
Way stricter.
But I know a lot of Scandinavian companies have been getting rid of Microsoft product because of the security issues for that. Again, they take it much more seriously than we do for data security. So keep that in mind, guys. Just 1 minute left. Are there any last minute questions from me or Nigel? Like you're saying, Nigel, I wish I had this when I was in their shoes. Like back in 2018, 2019, there wasn't anything for like this, especially for like Black professionals. There was not any of this at all. Because BIC I was like, I want to say the 10th member of BIC when I joined as an ambassador, so it wasn't really that big. So there a lot of these spaces weren't really built out for cybersecurity specifically. So guys, definitely take advantage of it. If you have questions, please do ask us. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this. So anybody that's curious about like what we do for our programs, our trainings, or stuff like that, let me do this. I'm probably gonna regret this, but whatever. I'll put my county link down here, right? Things gonna probably blow up, but I'll be nice this week. So you guys have it. Again, if you're serious about like working with me and Nigel to get promoted, to try to get a job, then reach out towards us, book a call with me, and kind of go from there, right? Let me see. But I mean, if there's no more questions at all, then we'll end for tonight. So we're gonna go back on normal schedule starting August 11th. I'll have that invite out probably by end of tonight, Nigel. So that will be, what was it? That'll be Markeisha Dominic Alegrete, if I pronounced his name correctly. And then you will be on that one as well. We'll be covering, again, LinkedIn stuff because people still don't want to use it for some odd reason. I don't know why. So we'll be covering on how to actually use that, right? Dominic will be covering more threat analysis stuff as well. Dominic is super cool guy. So is Markeisha. So we'll be having them on as well. So the invite for that will be coming out for the wider public either tonight or tomorrow. And for you, Nigel, I'll have that out for you probably tonight.
Okay.
But any other questions at all, just feel free to ping us on LinkedIn. We will help you guys out. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.
All right, take care.